The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Krell of the Vorthon Empire entered. His crystalline form caught the light from 1,000 stars visible through the transparent dome overhead. Representatives from 47 species turned their various sensory organs toward him, waiting for the news that would determine the fate of an entire sector. "The humans have mobilized," Krell announced, his harmonics carrying dread. "Their entire Third Fleet has departed Sol system." A ripple of fear passed through the assembly. The Urani delegation chittered nervously among themselves while the gaseous ethereals flickered in distress. Only Ambassador Vera of the Kellan Republic remained still, her 6 eyes fixed on the holographic display materializing at the chamber's center. "Show us," Vera commanded. The display revealed hundreds of human vessels, each one a testament to their species' paradoxical nature. Where other races built ships of elegant curves or efficient geometric shapes, humans had created angular behemoths bristling with weapons that seemed excessive even by wartime standards. The flagship, a dreadnought named Redemption, stretched 3 kilometers from bow to stern. "They claim this is about settling a debt," Krell continued. "A debt from 70 standard cycles ago." The chamber erupted. 70 cycles was nothing to species that measured their histories in millennia, but humans with their mayfly lifespans had memories that spanned generations. They recorded everything, forgot nothing, and most terrifyingly of all, they held grudges that outlived the ones who first bore them. Commander Atlas stood on the bridge of the Redemption, watching stars streak past as they traveled through hyperspace. His weathered face showed none of the excitement that buzzed through his younger crew members. This wasn't his first campaign, but it would likely be his most important. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council," Lieutenant River reported from the communication station. "Ignore it," Atlas replied. "We're beyond their jurisdiction now." His executive officer, a woman named Storm, stepped closer. "They'll see this as an act of aggression. The entire galaxy will turn against us." Atlas turned to face her. "Let them. We've played by their rules for 7 decades. Where did that get the colonists of Haven Prime?" The question hung in the air. Every human knew the story. Haven Prime had been humanity's first extrasolar colony, established when they were still considered a minor species, barely worthy of notice. The Dominari Empire had arrived, claimed the system despite human settlements already thriving there, and when the colonists refused to leave, they were eliminated. 800,000 souls, gone in a single planetary bombardment. The Galactic Council had ruled it a regrettable territorial dispute and imposed minor sanctions on the Dominari. For humans who measured justice in absolutes rather than diplomatic niceties, it had been a wound that festered. They had spent 70 years preparing, building, and waiting for the perfect moment. That moment had arrived 3 days ago when long-range scouts reported the entire Dominari fleet gathered at their capital for a ceremonial celebration of their Emperor's 1,000th year of rule. They were vulnerable, complacent, certain that the humans had forgotten their ancient grief. They were wrong. Back in the council chamber, Ambassador Vera pulled up historical records. The humans filed their grievance properly. They waited for the statute of limitations to pass. Technically, they're within their rights to seek resolution through force. "Rights?" screeched the avian representative, his feathers ruffling in agitation. "They're going to destroy an entire empire over a 70-cycle-old incident." "Not destroy," Vera corrected, studying human military doctrine. "Look at their fleet composition. Medical ships, supply vessels, construction platforms. This isn't an extinction fleet. It's something else." Krell's form darkened with confusion. "If not destruction, then what?" Vera's 6 eyes widened as understanding dawned. "Collection. They're going to collect on the debt." The Dominari Empire had ruled for 3,000 years. Their crystal spires reached into the clouds of a dozen worlds. Their technology was refined, their culture ancient, their military proud. They had never known defeat, only temporary setbacks that they outlasted through sheer longevity. Emperor Thane stood in his throne room, surrounded by his war council, as reports flooded in. The human fleet had dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of their system, but instead of immediately attacking, they had broadcast a single message on all frequencies. "People of the Dominari Empire," the human commander's voice echoed through their halls. 70 years ago, your forces destroyed our colony at Haven Prime. 800,000 humans died. Your government paid a fine of 10 million credits to the Galactic Council. Today, we collect the true debt. Surrender your military assets and half your industrial capacity, or we will take them by force. You have 1 hour to respond. The Emperor's advisor, an ancient being named Sage, trembled. Half our industrial capacity? They cannot be serious. They're humans, Thane replied, his voice heavy with realization. They're always serious about debts. The Dominari had studied humans, of course. Every major species had once it became clear that these newcomers were more than primitive mammals who had stumbled onto FTL travel. But most had focused on their technology, their rapid expansion, their seemingly chaotic governmental systems. Few had understood the core of human nature. They were persistence predators, evolved to chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. When that evolutionary trait combined with their complex emotions and their concept of justice, it created something the galaxy had never seen before. A species that would spend 70 years planning revenge. A species that would build an entire fleet for a single purpose. A species that would cross the galaxy to balance a ledger written in blood. The hour passed. The Dominari and their pride refused to surrender. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted 17 hours. The humans didn't target population centers or cultural sites. They methodically destroyed military installations, captured industrial platforms, and disabled defensive systems with surgical precision. They had spent decades studying Dominari tactics, technology, and psychology. Every move the Empire made had been anticipated, countered, and turned against them. When the Dominari finally surrendered, Commander Atlas personally oversaw the collection. Manufacturing stations were dismantled and loaded onto human vessels. Military ships were claimed as prizes. Technology databases were copied. The humans took exactly half of everything that could produce weapons or ships, leaving the Dominari with enough to defend themselves, but never again to threaten others. But the true message wasn't in what they took. It was in what they left behind. On every Dominari world, the humans erected monuments, black obsidian obelisks reaching toward the sky, each one inscribed with the names of the Haven Prime colonists, 800,000 names carved in letters that would last millennia. At the base of each monument, a simple message in all known languages, paid in full. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as the human fleet departed Dominari space as suddenly as they had arrived. They didn't occupy, they didn't colonize, they collected their debt and left, returning to their own territory with their prizes. In the Galactic Council, the emergency session had been running for 3 days straight. Species that had wronged others in the past suddenly found themselves reviewing ancient treaties and grievances. The humans had changed the game. They had shown that they would wait decades for justice, that they would cross the galaxy to settle accounts, and that they would do so with a precision that made traditional warfare look primitive. Ambassador Vera addressed the assembly with a proposal that would have been unthinkable before the Dominari incident. I motion that we establish a new protocol for addressing historical grievances, with standardized reparations and enforcement mechanisms. The motion passed unanimously. Even species that had never agreed on anything found common ground in their desire to avoid becoming the next target of human debt collection. On Earth, the response to the Dominari campaign was mixed. Some celebrated justice finally served. Others worried about the precedent they had set. But in the military academies and diplomatic schools, a new doctrine was being taught. They called it the Haven Principle. Every debt must be paid, every wrong must be balanced, and patience is the greatest weapon of all. The galaxy had learned to fear human warriors, their technology, and their determination, but after the Dominari incident, they learned to fear something far more terrifying: human memory. For humans recorded everything, forgot nothing, and would cross time and space to balance their books. Years later, when historians from 100 worlds tried to understand how humans had become the de facto peacekeepers of the galaxy, they would point to this moment, not through conquest or political maneuvering, but through a simple demonstration that actions had consequences, that debts would be collected, and that justice, however delayed, would eventually arrive. The Dominari Empire survived, diminished but not destroyed. Their monuments to Haven Prime became pilgrimage sites, reminders of the price of aggression against those who seemed weak. And in the halls of power across the galaxy, a new saying emerged: whispered in languages that had never known fear before humanity arrived. Never owe the humans anything. For in a gal,